Welcome everyone to the Lofi Poli Sci podcast. I'm your host Michael Pickering, and that's right, Lo-Fi's and low fidelity, low quality, in your face, messy as can be global news show. Here we're going to talk about that famous question: what's going on in the world today? And you guessed it, Lo-Fi Nation, it's Messy Monday. That's right, it's time for that fast cap weekend recap. Messy Monday's weekend recap will bring you 10 fast-paced headlines from across the globe, and then a piece of humanity to send you on your way for the week. So let's get messy. The news fresh off the press. Source: the next 4 stories are all from Reuters World Section. And to Russia we go. Russian envoy to Denmark says U.S. provokes Arctic peace. This comes just after our reporting last week that the U.S. wants to increase spending in Greenland by $12 million. Remember I said we should start paying attention up there? Well, it seems Russia is. In Vietnam. Vietnam jails Facebook user over anti-state post. The individual was sentenced to a 1.5 years, and I quote, for abusing the rights to democracy and freedom. End quote. Hey Facebook, aren't tech companies supposed to save the world from things like this? In El Salvador authorizes use of legal force against gangs. Just recently, one of our Freedom House segments focused on El Salvador and how violence and criminal activity greatly hindered the progression of the country. This weekend, almost 60 people were killed due to gang violence. Now the president is authorizing police and military to use deadly force to try and stop the violence. Now to the coast of Iran. U.S. naval coalition creates insecurity in the Gulf. Iran military statement. For weeks now, we've brought you stories about increased tensions in the region, as well as last week's launch of an Iranian military satellite and the U.S. president's tweet about shooting down Iranian gunboats. It appears that the Iranian military didn't like that tweet very much. And our next 3 stories all come from the BBC Middle East and Africa sections. In Saudi Arabia ends execution for crimes committed by minors, says Commission. Recently, we've heard multiple stories of human rights violations in the country. Today, Saudi Arabia makes a step in the right direction by no longer killing children that commit crimes. No one clap. You don't get applause for doing something that everyone already knows you shouldn't do. Nonetheless, this is a good thing. Curious enough, though, this royal decree came from King Solomon himself, and not the crown prince, who is generally seen as the ruler of the country. We'll be keeping an eye on this interesting note. In Yemen war, separatists declare autonomous rule in south. Last week, there was discussion on a ceasefire due to current conditions in the country. Now, it seems as if that may not take place, as this group had previously agreed to a power-sharing arrangement with the UN/internationally backed government of the country. We'll be waiting to see how this story develops further. In Somalia, U.S. admits civilian casualties in Somalia. U.S. Africa Command has finally acknowledged the unintended deaths of civilians due to drone strikes. The command further states that a website will be going online soon where people and organizations can launch inquiries about further civilian casualties. And our final 3 stories come from AP News International and Oddities. In Israel, Netanyahu confident U.S. will support West Bank annexation. To be clear to Lo-Fi listeners, annexing territory is another way of saying, I'm taking something that wasn't originally mine and making it mine. Russia was kicked out of the G8 for annexing Crimea. What will the world's reaction be to Israel if they annex the West Bank? Write in and let me know your thoughts. In California, official resigns after throwing cat during online meeting. Oh, California. Is it really a good idea to throw a cat whilst drinking beer during a Zoom meeting for the City Planning Commission? Short answer, no it is not. It may be Messy Monday, but it's never throw a cat Messy Monday. Bad form, sir. Bad form. And our last piece of news from the AP, Louisiana. One-eyed squirrel with Instagram account is returned to nature. Oh, where to begin? Who takes in a squirrel? Who takes in a one-eyed squirrel? Who compares a one-eyed squirrel to, and I quote, having a toddler on meth? Let's just say thank you, authorities, for picking up this little squirrel named Wilhelmina and returning her to her natural environment. Wild animals are wild, and let them be as such. Nature is beautiful because it's natural, untampered, unhindered. But remember, Lo-Fi Poli Sci listeners, we are part of nature. We are beautiful. Let your life and imagination and innovation go unhindered this week. Peace and well-being on this messy Monday. Peace and well-being, Lo-Fi Nation. And that's a brief snapshot of what's going on in the world today. Please write in with your questions, comments, or requests for countries for our new segments too. Lofi Poli Sci at planetmail.com. That's Lofi, L-O-F-I, Poli, P-O-L-I, Sci, at planetmail.com. Let me say thank you so much for listening. Stay safe, wash those hands, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Lofi Poli Sci podcast. Pickering